Hello and welcome. 50 days after demonetization, the jury is still out on how effective this exercise will be in curbing black money in the long term. But one thing there's no doubt about, and that is the severe restrictions it has placed in our ability to access our own money, the reduction in spending, the reduction in the demand for loans, and the millions of daily hardships that we've had to encounter. On the flip side, it has also made many of us transact digitally for the first time ever. Now, caught in the middle of all this disruption is the banking system, and to say that banks have had a rough time is an understatement. So how have they coped, or rather fared, and what can we expect going forward? Let's get India's biggest banker, Arundhati Bhattacharya, to weigh in. Ms. Bhattacharya, in the past few days, you've come to symbolize for the common man Indian banking. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say the banking system as a whole has fared in terms of coping with demonetization, which you've described as an exercise without a roadmap?
Well, I would probably give it a 7 because again, as you understand, there was no roadmap, and therefore there were a lot of things that you had to sort of, improvise, think on your feet. I think one good thing that has come of this is that most of my branch managers have got practical lessons in management, which probably they wouldn't have got otherwise, because most of them were actually on the floor doing the day-to-day crowd management, something which probably they don't get to do so frequently. But I think most of them have come through well. There have been difficulties, no doubt about it, and even today in small pockets I think there are queues still, but most of the places I think are things are sort of reverting back to normal, and I think we have come through it quite well actually.
7 on 10?
Yes.
7 on 10. Do you think that the rationing or the restrictions that have been placed on withdrawals, so 2,500 rupees daily from ATM, 24,000 every week from a branch, do you think these should continue for longer?
No, what I do believe is that any restriction that is imposed, it should only be gradually removed. If you remove it suddenly, then that again comes as a shock to the system, and that is difficult to bear again. So I believe that what needs to be done is to slowly remove it, so that people get used to, taking things more, a little at a time, rather than, coming and asking for the whole lot at one go, which may be difficult to fulfill. So there is no point in raising people's hopes. I would rather suggest that, it should be taken out gradually over a period of time.
What are the strengths of the banking system, of the Indian banking system, that this challenge has reinforced?
I think, the biggest strength that we could display was the fact that with very little notice, we could change our systems in order to come up with the right kind of response. As you know, depending upon the response from the public, certain changes were made. For instance, they told us that you can now give to people who have a marriage in the family 2,50,000. Then they said, well, we are finding that the same people are coming for exchange again and again, so now you should ink the fingers. And believe me, it's not easy to get that ink. There is only one unit that makes it in Mysore officially, and the rest, getting it from other places, is not easy. So there were several of these changes, and at each point of time we had to make changes in our systems, because not everything could be done manually.
Yeah, and the banking sector is amongst the most automated in that sense, isn't it? So
Exactly.
IT systems.
Absolutely, IT systems needed changing, and again, that's not easy at all. Then they told us, that if a corporate deposits money in new currency, that amount should be allowed to be drawn back by them over and above the 50,000. So again, we had to keep track of every corporate, what denomination they were bringing in, and then increase the amount that they could draw by that amount. Again, the person sitting at the counter who's handling the actual withdrawals wouldn't know this unless the system told him or her. So this has been a constant challenge, the amount of changes that we have made. But the fact that we have done it, and we have done it well, it shows the very robust nature of the entire banking system.
But between system, the IT systems, which is the backbone of how the banking industry functions, and people who man it, still a large employer of people, which has been more challenging to manage?
I would say, actually speaking, that the collaboration from the people was extraordinary. In fact, really speaking, we didn't have to manage them. They managed themselves.
They sort of rose to the occasion.
Yes, yes, they rose excellently to the occasion. I know that there have been a few wrongdoings, and because of that, a lot of bad things have been said, especially in the media. But I do believe those were aberrations. In every system, there are aberrations. But by and large, the way the people responded, it was really and truly amazing. They have done a great job, and the best thing was, you know, in most of the places we had told them that when people come in and when they are not getting what they need and when they are worried.
A rationing to the rationing.
Exactly.
Because you don't have cash supply.
Exactly. Now the problem is that the people, when they come in and they expect something and they don't get it, they will lose their temper. Not because they are bad, but because, well, their expectations are getting belied. And therefore you have to be much more patient, you have to explain, you have to be the person who stays silent in the face of any kind of onslaught. And I think that happened across the board. And that's the reason, you know, I have got so many letters, you know, appreciating the kind of support that the bankers have given. I have had little video clips sent to me of old ladies coming and giving rosebuds to my employees. I have heard of stories where the locals have provided tea and snacks to our employees late in the night because they were not able to go back. So, you know, all kinds of stories. I have heard them in these few days, and they are all amazing things, you know, to hear, because normally you don't get to hear so much of appreciation about the banks.
What are the weaknesses or the weak areas that this has exposed? Because I'm sure that is what you have to keep monitoring and fixing.
See, the weak areas are obviously, you know, a few people not really abiding by the rules and changing it around in order to benefit a few. So such cases have been there. The other problem also that has been is that, you know, many a time some of these instructions that came, they were not very clear. For instance, when you say that somebody who's getting married, you should give 2,50,000. Now there is in a marriage two parties. So then do I give the bride and the groom both 2,50,000, or is it only for one 2,50,000?
So what's the answer to that question?
No, I think you can give to both, but it has to be only one person out of that both. And then secondly,
no, that means that between the bride and the groom, 2,50,000 is what they could access.
No, I think it can be 2,50,000 per.
From both
so
parties.
It could be
so
5
lakhs.
It could be 5. It could be.
Oh
I
my
think
God,
so.
it's been a hard
I think
time.
so, because these are difficult things, and I don't exactly remember what it was. And then the second question that came to me from the branches is, what is the proof that we should retain?
Yeah.
How do we know? I mean, somebody can just go to any printer and get a wedding card and bring it across. How do we know that this is actually happening? And then what happens if this bride or groom comes to me and gets money from me and then goes somewhere else and gets his as well? These are questions that are very difficult to address, and you don't have a system whereby all the bank's accounts can be seen. So if you have an account with SBI and you have an account with PNB, you could jolly well go to both of these places and get it. How do you manage that? And what is the responsibility there? So, you know, these were the kinds of things that came up, and then constantly we had to innovate to come up with the right kind of answers so that our people also could actually work without feeling, you know, that they were not doing the right thing.
There is a lot of suspicion and rumor in a situation where information is so fluid and things are changing so rapidly, and that is that the close to 14 lakh crore rupees that may have come back in deposits, the number is so high and was not expected to be this high because some corrupt bank officials may have participated in money laundering. How do you think the system needs to address this?
No, I don't think that is the case. Again, as I said, you know, there is a very clear trail of every single transaction done. So, you know, when you are getting new currency, that amount of new currency is registered in your books. Okay. When you are again exchanging it for something, those withdrawals are again registered in your books. So if you can find that there is one particular, say, branch where so so much amount of new currency has come in, and the amount of withdrawals are only so few, and that new currency is no longer there in the currency chest, you obviously have a case of wrongdoing. There is no way of beating the system, at least for the bankers. The bankers have no way of beating this system, because there is a very clear reckoning of the amount of cash that is coming in, the amount of cash that is supposed to go out in the form of your withdrawals, and therefore, you know, there is a very clear relationship between the two. As a result, wherever more new currency has gone out than withdrawals that have been actually handled, you know that there is some wrongdoing. There is no way that this can get past anybody. But if there have been other means used, and we hear so many things about, you know, money being put into others' accounts, into accounts of workers, into accounts of PMJDY, into accounts of corporations, that is not something that bankers can do anything about, because frankly at the end of the day, even if you are looking at small value accounts in rural India, we know that in rural India there is a lot of cash, because everything happens in cash. Now, because the cash needs to be exchanged, if somebody has put it into his own account, it could jolly well be absolutely white cash. How do you understand that?
Fair enough. Would people not need the complicity of some bank officials to be able to launder money like this?
No, what is the laundering over here? You have money which you had kept in cash, you are in rural India,
no, not,
and
not,
you
not,
have an
not
account
that example,
and you put it in. That's it.
Not that example, Ms. Bhattacharya, but the other thing, which is that, you know, I have money, I reach out to a bank and I say, you know, can you help me, and I can pay you.
No, but
not a bank, sorry,
no.
to a corrupt official.
That is exactly what I'm trying to say, that you cannot do that without it getting caught in the system.
You're 100% you can give us that assurance.
Because I'll tell you, no, because you are allowed to withdraw only 24,000. Okay, so whatever cash you put in, at the end of the day, I know that there are 100 withdrawals of 24,000 each. Okay, so this is the amount of money that should have gone out. This is the amount of new cash I put in. Now, in your chest, if you have less new cash than the amount of withdrawals, then there is something wrong. So there is no way you can take cash out of the system without getting caught.
Well, would you be able to help us understand why the government and the banking system seems to have been taken by surprise by the quantum of money that has come back in?
The banking system is not taken by surprise. The banking system was not expecting either way. And I do not know whether the government is taken by surprise. Frankly speaking, the numbers were being given by economists who were trying to project. But again, demonetization is something that we are doing probably, you know, the last demonetization was a very small exercise. So again, this is a totally new kind of a scenario. So I don't think there is any kind of surprise. But the fact of the matter is, because there were so many articles getting written and so many opinions being given as to how much it will come back, therefore, probably the people at large had certain expectations or certain ideas in their mind, which is probably not turning out to be correct.
The other part of the demonetization narrative has been digital transactions and e-transactions. Can you give me a sense from the SBI experience of how it has been on the different fronts, whether it's internet banking, the usage of debit cards for transactions, not just for ATM withdrawals, credit cards and e-wallets?
Actually, you know, credit card transactions and internet banking, they are more or less okay. They have gone up slightly, but nothing very much. The reason for this is a population which were already transacting digitally, and there is not, you know, too much of increase there. But the increase that has come, exponential increase that has come, is in the use of debit cards, in the use of prepaid cards.
In transactions?
Yes, and in activation, and in the use of other means such as wallets and UPI and USSD. So these are the areas where we have seen a huge increase, mainly because this is not large value transactions, small value transactional items that have actually taken place. In respect of our wallet, which actually, you know, we have started about a year back, and the amount that we were transacting in the wallet has gone up by about 5 times. In respect of the debit card usage, it has gone up 3 times. In fact, over this weekend, I was at a shop and I was checking with them how much of cash and how much of credit they were getting earlier and what about now. And they said that, you know, whereas earlier out of their entire sales about 30% was by card, currently about 60% is in cash, is in card. So you can imagine that in a space of 5 or 6 weeks, if you have increased digital transactions almost 100 times, you know, from 30 to 60%, it has gone up twice the amount, then actually it's a very big transformation. The only caveat over here is that we must keep this up. We must not sort of slide back into the cash culture, and that is something that we will really have to work on.
So, Ms. Bhattacharya, banks are known traditionally to be very aggressive marketers. Most banks like SBI have, you know, you have e-wallets, you have the SBI Buddy. Why is it then that the conversation about e-wallets and conversion to e-wallets has been it's been captured, the conversation has been captured by the likes of Paytm?
See, Paytm started much earlier, okay, and Paytm has a few advantages that we don't have. Not only Paytm, other private wallet players. Yes. See, they have an ability to do a lot of spends, which we really can't, because as you know, these companies are companies who do a lot of advertising, a lot of cashbacks. They burn capital. Now, banks cannot burn capital, you know, because we have to be really very, very cautious about the way we do anything, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is very, very important for us. For newcomers in these areas, they don't look at their bottom line immediately. They are looking at the long term. They really want to just rack up the number of people using the volumes at this point of time without any consideration of the bottom line. Their game is a market share game. Their game is not a bottom line game. In respect of the banks, however, we have to be more responsible in this manner. We are players that are here to stay. We are not players over here who can pack up and go. So, you know, we have to be very careful about our spends, because we can't do something that is not profitable for an extended period of time.
Ma'am, you defended the different notifications, sometimes, you know, one per day, more than one a day that the RBI has come out with, and you have defended these measures, saying that, you know, as the situation changes, you are trying to be responsive to the situation. Having said that, there is some sense that the RBI, always a venerable institution, is not looking as good as it should, or has lost some of its sheen. In fact, you know, former RBI Deputy Governor Usha Thorat wrote in the Indian Express, and I'm quoting her, saying, "It is indeed a sad day to see one of the most respected public institutions in India becoming an object of ridicule and scorn." Very unusual. Conservative bankers don't say these things in public. Is there need for damage control? Is there sheen that's
I think, you know, you have to understand that they were doing a very difficult job. A very difficult job at a very difficult time. So, you know, if you are doing a very difficult job at a very difficult time, there will be voices that will be critical. There is nothing strange in that. And there will be voices that would be laudatory as well. So, I think, you know, these things all even out over a period of time. This is a particular exercise where you have seen the difficulties in the short term, but there will be a lot of advantages in the middle and the long term.
So you don't think the RBI's institutional reputation has been under some kind of siege?
No, see, as I told you, you know, there will be people who will criticize, but we know the challenges that they have faced. And in the face of challenges, whatever response you give, there will be people who will say that, you know, you didn't come up to scratch. But I think, you know, you need to see these against a backdrop of a longer time span. Seeing it at that point of time may not really give you the actual picture.
Ms. Bhattacharya, my final question. You have been making a case for digital transactions and a digital economy by saying that it will also help in financial inclusion, and people, small entrepreneurs, really small entrepreneurs, will be able to access loans and will be part of the formal banking system. And yet, ma'am, in the past 50 days, it is this sector where businesses are folded up, people have lost daily wages, people have lost jobs. When you look at the human cost of this exercise, do you feel that maybe we could have reached for the same goals but with a little more empathy in the process?
Well, this was a process that that had to run in a particular manner. Means I don't really know what more could be done in the area of empathy. What could have been thought probably is to get more digitization done before undertaking this. But having said that, whether that digitization would have happened without this kind of a
compulsion to try
compulsion is doubtful. So it's very difficult at this point of time to gauge what should have been done or what could have made this a less painful exercise. It's very difficult. However, we have also, means I have visited a few centers myself, small centers. The level of adoption is quite amazing. And the fact that people say that the small business people are resistant, I would say that large corporates are more resistant than the small business people. Actually, you have a number of people, even though they may be running small pan shops or even pani puri walas, who are actually using the digital. They cannot afford to stand aside and wait for cash to come back. So they are doing their business. They have already got the new business model. They have adopted digital whole hog. It is the people who can afford to wait, who are waiting to see whether cash will come back before they resume again. So I think overall this has been it's been an exercise that has opened a number of, what should I say, it has laid to rest a number of axioms that we used to think about, that only the people who are literate and who have a lot of money, that they will go for digital. It has laid to rest a lot of these suppositions, and we are seeing things which we never thought we would see. So I think if you take it overall, if you really had to do a demonetization of so much of currency, probably this kind of a pain is inevitable. Means it's very difficult to do an exercise of such a large nature and have absolutely no pain.
Ms. Bhattacharya, as usual, thank you for so lucidly and candidly explaining what it has been like for the banks and the banking system, and trying to reassure us. I wish you a lot of luck in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.